Hey guys, chickenandmanedeboo.com with an update on Hurricane Matthew. This update effective around 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday, October 6, 2016. And guys, going to start you off with the latest forecast track. This is the 11 a.m. forecast track out of the National Hurricane Center on Hurricane Matthew. Folks, please visit the National Hurricane Center at www.hurricane.gov for all official watches and warnings. If watches and warnings are issued for your region, please heed the advice of your state, local, and county emergency officials. Okay, guys, this is going to be kind of a long discussion. I wanted to take on a personal note to let you guys know that after this video, I'm going to be preparing to evacuate. Thanks to Bruddah JOE Rukab, got me a spot. So I'm having a hard time keeping up on my Facebook page, and Scott Carnes and James Nill out of South Florida may be posting up, trying to keep everybody up to date. Now, guys, I want to start you off with this discussion now because there's some misnomers about what this map actually shows, okay? Hurricane Matthew is down here where this little orange dot is. Then it goes to an M with a black dot, another M with a black dot, and so on and so forth. The loop that we talked about the other day is in the National Hurricane Center's map now. The misnomer comes in is that people assume that this orange dot is going to connect with this black M dot and then connect with this black M dot, and there is some truth to that. But there is a cone of uncertainty. And the National Hurricane Center has that cone of uncertainty for a reason. So just because this is located here, it doesn't mean it can't move over to the white side of this line, come up in here and connect here, continue to move over here to this side and go this way, and then this way, and this way. That's what we call as a wobble. Okay, so when you're looking at this map, do not draw a straight line from this to this to this, because the cone of uncertainty tells you otherwise. And when you get out to here, the margin of error is 240 miles. Okay, simple enough? All right, want to start you off with a single imagery. Hurricane Matthew over here, NIHKOL over here, could become a hurricane today. That would be two hurricanes spinning at the same time. We talked about last week, we don't know what the exact interaction was going to be between brother and sister here, but we now have a third player in here, National Hurricane Center, only giving a 10% chance of development, guys. Okay, but I want to show you the pattern. This is going to be an in-depth discussion, so I hope you're ready for it. There's another area of low pressure down in here in the intertropical convergence zone. When we go back and look at flow and pattern, although you can't see it to the right of my image, the flow is this way, okay? Out of the east to the west. And you see how this lifts in here, and the connection is Matthew here, NIHKOL here, possible Otto, hello, and then the flow again is like this, and you have lift in here. Above here, the flow is this way, right? Area of low pressure here, gonna slide off towards the east. You're going to have NIHKOL and Matthew kind of pinballing around each other. And the overnight run of the Euro and the most recent run of the GFS has different solutions. They're both 180s. They're opposite in thinking. Let's see what happens with the afternoon model run of the Euro. But if you look at this, one of the other things I wanted to point out to you, not to stray, is that if you remember, we first started talking about the first two hurricane force lows up in here in the North Atlantic to start off the 2016-2017 winter swell season. For those of you who are new to our forecast, we are primarily a maritime and surf forecast, but during hurricane season, we're a tropical weather expert. And if you look back over here, we pointed this out about a week ago. Fresh snow has been falling in here, and the northern hemicap is cooling off. And when that happens, when hot meets cold, it creates spin, and look, see that? And then here's the trough that should kick Matthew out, but you can see it's short. See that? Let me pull this down for you. So as this flow is this way, wanting to Matthew to lift up and then push away, you can see in the imagery, if you look closely and watch loop, guys, and so this is going back to that, for those who saw that image where I screenshotted over Northeast Florida and I said this is a bad omen for Jacksonville, it's because you can see in the loops where the storm wants to go. So the difference between a model follower and someone who actually studies the imagery and studies flow, they're always stuck at looking at models versus just looking at the imagery. So at this particular point, we don't need to look at the models so much. We've got the hurricane hunters flying in, give us the data. It's being monitored like somebody on ICU. So stop looking at the models. Do what you need to do, prepare, because Matthew is setting up. And again, we don't know the final solution between what's going to happen with NIHKOL here, but we'll talk about that here in just a few moments. But let's move on now. I know I'm starting to sound like I'm rambling. Here it is, Matthew here. And when we talked about that imagery, look how this little circle is starting to develop in here. Okay? And then it looks like another little circle is developing in here. You go back and look at the National Hurricane Center's forecast track and you go, oh yeah, they got that just not too far from where he just showed me that in here. So this gives you the confidence that it's moving in this direction, in this general direction. But remember, you have the cone of uncertainty. So there's no guarantee that this can't come in here at a different angle as it slides up the coast. Yes, the models have been saying that it's going to go up the coast. And when we look a little further, we always like to look ahead of where the National Hurricane Center says the storm is going to be. And when we zoom in and look, this is Central Florida, guys. This is the Space Coast. I'm going to put it on it for you. It's right in here. Or excuse me, right in here. And when you pull back and you look at the eye, you look at here, you look at the track the National Hurricane Center has, and that's confirmation that you're confident in your forecast. Okay, guys, let me move you on a little further. Going to take you on the visible satellite loops now, because this is the next step in our process when we start looking at things. Matthew moving up, guys. You still have time to make preparations to get away from the coast. There are some X factors that are involved in this forecast, because as Matthew gets closer to the South Florida coast, the Okeechobee plays a small role, but we don't know, just like we don't know what the interaction is going to be here. So for South Florida residents, some heat rising up could produce some stronger, heavier rains in there. That's something to watch. It's happened before. So the forecast is for Matthew to rotate and do a loop-de-loop. When you look closely, the next area, the fifth mark on the National Hurricane Center map, puts Matthew around here on Monday. When you zoom in, you can see that flow. The GFS, we'll start talking about the models now. The GFS wants to take Matthew and loop him around, put him back in the Bahamas, weakening, okay? Weakening and moving off towards the Western Caribbean or possibly over to the Uke. The net effect of that is NIHKOL comes sliding off towards the west and become east of Florida. Now, I don't want you folks to get worried about that at the moment yet, because you have to remember that once Matthew makes this loop in here, significant upwelling is going to occur off the East Florida coast. And in retrospect, or not retrospect, in hindsight, maybe the blessing out of Matthew could be that, you know, he came in here, finally stirred up the water enough to get rid of the ridiculous discharge out of the Okeechobee and kill it. God. Okay, guys, sorry. Okay, so as we move on a little further, here's that area down towards the east of the Lesser Antilles. This is going to slide off towards the Western Caribbean, and National Hurricane Center giving it a 10% chance of development. No sense in going out any further towards Africa. The Cape Verde season is finally over, but it's this homegrown development that's coming up in the next 2 to 3 weeks that we have to be most concerned about, because we could be looking at this all over again. Looking at the latest GFS model forecast, this is the 06Z run showing you Matthew hitting or moving up to the central Florida coast, making that loop back towards South the Bahamas and over South Florida, and then there it is towards the Uke like we just talked about. Now here's NIHKOL over here meandering east of the central Bahamas, because she's become an X factor, and the rotation, almost like a Fujiwara effect, if you will, except for it's not a full rotation around one another, but they are pinballing. Folks in Hispaniola and Puerto Rico, if the trough sets up differently in here, you could have possibly some heavy tropical rains try to set up, as the area of low pressures along the North American coast may try and draw some more moisture up. Going to switch you over to the European model, guys, and then we're going to end it here. I got to get myself ready to evacuate. Just like you, I've never faced a Category 5. And here is the Euro moving Matthew into the central Florida coast up near northeast Florida. And this looks like, guys, at this particular moment, that this is going to break the 11-year drought. And then Matthew moves up towards the South Carolina coast, and then he drops it back down towards the Bahamas. Okay, I'm going to stop right here. For those of you who are wanting to surf killer waves, a massive swell will likely develop, or there is the possibility of it. And we'll walk you through that here now, because here comes a strong northeast fetch off Nova Scotia and in here towards Newfoundland. This is going to get some strong northeast swell going, guys. And at the same time, if you look over here in the right-hand portion of your image, you'll see an area of low pressure that is southwest of Portugal. As we advance you through the model run, you'll see that high pressure bends, and we have continued onshore flow with possible tropical development now coming in the Bahamas with a second feature in here. We'll advance you a little bit more. You'll see that it lifts off, and then finally off to the North Atlantic. And then in the North Atlantic, we have two areas of low pressure, both producing northeast ground swell. So the predominant swell flow is going to be out of the northeast. I'm going to back this back up for you guys, because the European model is starting to hint that we got more trouble coming. That's all we got for you now, guys. Stay tuned for the next update.